Hi, good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining today. I'm Kristen Thom, the Director of Product Management at White Cup. And today we're going to take just 12 minutes or less, I promise, I have a timer running, to look at managing your time to maximize sales. Time is your most valuable resource, and understanding how to spend your time to drive revenue can be the difference between hitting your sales goals and burning out with a packed calendar, but not the sales numbers to back it up. We're going to take a look at how to evaluate and start eliminating or automating low-value tasks. A McKinsey study recently showed that high-performing sales reps spend 22% more time with their customers, or on what McKinsey calls external interactions, than low-performing sales reps. The study also was one in a wave over the last couple of years, showing that B2B customers, your customers, now behave like and have similar expectations to B2C customers, one facet of which is a groundswell of preference to interact remotely and digitally rather than face-to-face. That number is a 70 to 80% preference for B2B customers to interact digitally by McKinsey's count. So there's two questions that I want to touch on today. First, how do you get that time, that 22% more time with your customers when you're already busy? What can we do to get you there? And two, how do you make the most of the time you do have with your customers? For the first question, how do you get that time? I'm going to refer you back to the first 12 minutes tech talk that my colleague Brian Friedel did a couple weeks ago, looking for areas of automation with personalization in your standard workflows, using tools to get manual processes off your plate and free up time in your day. We'll also mention a couple of those spots we uncovered today too, so watch out for those. And we'll share at the end of today's session how to access the recording of that previous tech talk as well, so keep an eye out for that. I think Brian nailed the 12-minute time frame pretty much perfectly, so pressure's on for me today. But today we're really going to focus on that second question, which is how do you make the most of the time you have with your customers? How do you know how best to spend your time? We're going to take a look at how bringing together CRM, your system where you're managing your contacts and accounts, your tasks and activity history, and your opportunity pipeline, and BI, or business intelligence, where you're pulling data from your systems together to give you actionable insights. And when you bring these two together, CRM and BI, how can you make decisions about the most valuable ways to spend your time? I'm going to hop over into our White Cup BI product now, and we're going to take a look at one example here. This is going to be a starting point. I'm going to ask a lot of questions to get you thinking about how you're looking at your time and ways you can use your data to make these decisions. So here is a super simple report that gives us one way to look at our historical activities. We've got our bill to customers here with our activities for the last 3 months. And right next to that is our total bookings for that same period for those customers. And then a calculated column on the right, which is showing us the number of activities divided by bookings for a dollar amount per activity. Now, this is a really super simplified look for sure. There are many variables that go into this. For instance, are your reps actually logging activities in your CRM consistently? If not, let's talk. Is your sales cycle a little longer where you need 6 months of activity data to see how it's impacting bookings in this quarter, etc.? But this does give you a great view of a few things at a glance, and it gives you the opportunity to then investigate further. And that's really what you want out of BI, letting your data show you where you should be spending time and where you should be asking questions. So let's look at Your Set Tobacco, for instance, this top account here, where just 2 activities resulted in $212,000 in bookings. If we drill into that account and review their order history, maybe we see they have a large reorder that they faithfully put in with us around the same time each year, and that's why we have this huge ROI on a couple simple activities. Okay, so now we have an actionable insight. Let's make darn sure we get that reorder, right? But don't take it for granted. Spending a few extra minutes on a touch point with that customer is definitely worth your time. But that's an easy one, a no-brainer that maybe you knew already. You know your big accounts like the back of your hand many times, and you've got commission riding on that reorder coming in. But how about that account that you're making sales to, but you also just feel like they're a pain in the neck? You're always on the phone with them about something, and sure, they put in orders. So you're going to keep picking up that phone, but man, can they eat up an afternoon really quickly. So let's take a look at Joel Baker Inc. here, a little bit ways down. They are actually our largest customer as far as bookings in the last 3 months in this report, but I've also touched base with them 14 times in that period. And here's where I want to take a look, not just at the quantity of activities, but also maybe at the quality of activities. We're all very good at being busy and can really fill up a calendar fast, but is what we're spending our days on really moving the needle towards our goals? That's where quality of activity comes into play here. So let's add a expansion here and look at activity type in addition to just count of activities. And then for my own sanity, I'm going to add a quick filter to filter greater than 0 to clean up that view really quickly. There we go. And scrolling back down to Joel Baker here. So when we're looking at activity type in addition to just the total count, what can the ways that I'm interacting with this customer tell me? I have 2 on-site visits with them in the last 3 months. I have a couple quote follow-ups. I have 4 customer relations touch points. Now that makes me interested to know what those customer relations touch points are. I can drill in further to see details of each of those different activities. Maybe this is something I have a conversation with my manager about as well. Here's an account that I want to make sure we keep happy, but I am spending an awful lot of time on them. Should we look at a wider range of dates to see if on-site visits historically lead to sales with this customer? Maybe instead of ad hoc calls each week that I'm fielding, we set a bi-weekly or a monthly check-in with this customer to make sure they're still feeling the love without blowing up my calendar so much. Or maybe I want to take my report a step further and add in a column of data here for activity duration. So I can see if I'm spending an average of 5 minutes for each of these activities or 30 minutes or an hour on each of these. That could be a huge difference. Or maybe I review the notes on each of my activities to see common trends. Are they calling about order statuses and estimated delivery dates? All right, how about we get ahead of that and we send them a weekly email on those statuses so we give it to them before they have a chance to ask for it. And while we're at it, why don't we go ahead and automate that email? Back to that question 1 we mentioned earlier of how do I get more time? Look for those opportunities for automated steps that add value for your customers and also for you. Win-win, helps everybody out. But let's not forget what's happening at the bottom of this list here too, our friends down at the bottom. Link zone here with 7 activities in the last 3 months and 0 bookings. I'd take a look maybe at 12-month sales trends and year-over-year status to see if spending my time with these on-site calls has potential behind it, or if I'm spinning my wheels and just filling my calendar without filling my pipeline. Maybe my contact at LinkZone is the nicest person on the planet and I love chatting with them, but we're not seeing outcomes from that. It's time to switch it up in how we're interacting, at least in method, if not in frequency as well. Now, this is not the only way to examine effective use of time. For example, maybe I want to add in here number of quotes prepared versus win rate of those quotes. How much time am I spending putting together quotes? Do I have a serial offender who asks for quotes and then never buys? That's great information to have going into a conversation so you can appropriately weigh how much of your own time you need to invest. The reality is not all customers are created equal. We want to treat them all with respect and the highest level of service we can, but you only have so many hours in the day and you need to make them count. Where can you find those opportunities for digital touch points versus where is an in-person call really going to make an impact? Let's for a second take all of this one step further. Part of understanding the level of effort to get to a booking with a different customer plays into our cost to serve. This can be hard to define and hard to put numbers to. It's something I talk with distributors about all the time that they're struggling with. So where do you have data you can bring together to get you there? This is where combining data from your ERP system and your CRM system into a flexible BI tool allows you to take those steps forward. Why not take a hard number for cost to serve calculated from your average line dollars, percent of returns, average days to pay, et cetera, and put that side by side with your CRM activity for that exact same account. And now you have a great way to look at not just how effective is your time spent with that account, but also even how should you be pricing your quotes for them to ensure that your investment of time is really paying off. And finally, let's zoom back out to CRM where you are hopefully logging your interactions and building that account history. When you find those trends of activities that are taking time and not really paying off, Does your CRM support the ability to automate that part of the workflow? If it's not really an option to just not interact with your customers, at least if you want to keep them as customers. So do you have the tools available to you to automate that quote follow-up email or get promos out to your quiet customers on a regular basis and track who's showing interest in those? And I'll leave you with this. Remember the numbers I mentioned 10 minutes ago, right on track here. B2B customers, that is your customers, have a strong preference to have 70 to 80% of their interactions in a sales cycle digitally. So meet them where they're at, deliver messages in the way they want to consume them, and make your personal interactions more effective for both your calendar and your sales goals. So we are right on track here. Let us wrap up and make sure we hit our 12-minute time frame here. Next up in this series of 12-minute Tech Talks, we will be back in 2 weeks with Brian Friedel, our VP of Sales here at Whitecup. He was a distribution leader himself in a former life, and he brings a ton of knowledge and real-world experience of what life as a distributor looks like. He'll be tackling the question of, do you really know who your best customers are? Plays very closely into this, as you can see, and ways to both identify those best customers and how to transform that information into productive sales calls that ultimately increase your customer value. So join us then. You'll get a registration link after today's call. You'll also get a recording of the previous 12-minute Tech Talk as well as a recording of today's session. So please check out that first session from 2 weeks ago as well. Highly suggest it. It's just 12 minutes in and out. We'll keep it short. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to know your thoughts on this format of these super quick 12-minute hits and see if we should keep doing these. Or if you have additional questions for our team, you'll see the info@whitecupsolutions.com email address on the screen here. You'll also see my contact info here as well. If you have questions on today's content or our products at Whitecup, I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining us for this 12-minute Tech Talk. Think I made it in time. Have a great rest of your day.